Good morning. Before we begin, I want to ask you something simple, yet dangerously powerful. What if the first 5 minutes of your day were secretly deciding the quality of your entire life? Most people wake up and jump straight into chaos, messages, responsibilities, noise. But a very few, choose to start their day with intention. And intention is what separates people who react to life from people who lead life. Today, I want to show you 8 questions that transform your mind from survival mode into leadership mode. Questions that turn doubt into clarity, stress into strategy, and ordinary mornings into extraordinary momentum. And here's the truth. If you stay with me till the end, you won't just learn these questions. You'll start thinking differently about who you are and who you're becoming. Because the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. Let's begin. Gratitude is not just a pleasant idea. It is a recalibration of the mind, a deliberate shift in perspective that changes the emotional tone of your entire day. When you wake up each morning, the world hasn't yet made its demands on you. No notifications, no deadlines, no conflicts, just a quiet moment where your mind is open, unshaped, and waiting for direction. This is the moment where gratitude becomes powerful. It acts like a tuning fork for your thoughts, aligning them away from scarcity and toward possibility. Most people live their lives constantly scanning for what's wrong, what's missing, or what could go wrong. It's not their fault. Our brains are wired for survival, not happiness. But the question, what am I grateful for right now, interrupts that wiring. It forces your mind to pause, to breathe, and to intentionally search for something good, something stable, something meaningful. And the very act of searching lifts you. Gratitude doesn't require your life to be perfect. It doesn't even require things to be good. It only requires honesty. Even in the midst of challenges, you can acknowledge something, your ability to breathe deeply, the fact that you woke up with another chance, the presence of someone who cares about you, or simply the opportunity to try again. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about noticing the small truths that help you keep going. It's a reminder that even in difficulty, you are not empty. You are not without resources. You are not without hope. And hope is a powerful thing. Hope fuels action, and action fuels progress. When you begin with gratitude, you begin the day from a place of abundance. Abundance doesn't mean excess. It means sufficiency. It means recognizing that you have enough to take the next step, enough to make a decision, enough to grow, enough to show up for the life you're building. Scarcity says, I can't. I don't have enough. I'm not ready. Abundance says, I can start with what I have. Gratitude is what turns scarcity into abundance. It reminds you that you are not defined by what you lack. You are empowered by what you already hold. Think about how you feel on the mornings when you wake up stressed, rushing, already behind. Your breathing quickens, your tension rises, and your mind jumps into survival mode. Everything becomes urgent, everything feels heavy, and even small inconveniences become overwhelming. Now contrast that with the mornings when you pause for just 30 seconds and acknowledge something meaningful. That pause is not small. That pause is a choice. And that choice changes the emotional chemistry of the moment. Gratitude activates calm, clarity, and presence. It slows your mind just enough for you to step in the day with intention instead of panic. Fear thrives in scarcity. When your mind is focused on what's missing or what might go wrong, fear has room to grow. It whispers doubts, amplifies uncertainties, and paints worst-case scenarios. But gratitude closes the door on fear by shifting your focus to what is already secure, already true, already working in your favor. You can't be deeply grateful and deeply afraid at the same time. One pushes out the other. Gratitude doesn't erase fear, but it shrinks it. It strips fear of its authority. It gives you the courage to move through uncertainty with steadiness instead of anxiety. Gratitude also reconnects you with your values. When you ask yourself what you're grateful for, you're really asking what matters to me. What do I want to protect? What is worth my effort today? These answers guide your decisions more powerfully than any to-do list ever will. You start to act with purpose instead of impulse. You start to speak with intention instead of reaction. You start to lead your life rather than chase after it. Gratitude roots you in what's meaningful, and meaning is the most stable foundation you can stand on. But the real power of gratitude is not in the words, it's in the repetition. Doing it once changes a moment. Doing it every morning changes your mindset. Doing it every morning for months changes your identity. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to interpret challenges differently. You begin to expect good things, notice opportunities, appreciate progress, and respond to setbacks with resilience rather than despair. You train your brain to look for what strengthens you instead of what drains you. There will be mornings when you don't feel grateful at all. Days when stress is loud, disappointments are fresh, or life feels unfair. And those are the mornings where the question matters most. Gratitude is not the denial of pain. It is the refusal to let pain define the entire truth. Even when everything feels heavy, finding one honest thing to be grateful for is like finding a handrail in the dark. It steadies you. It keeps you from falling deeper into negativity. It gives you a point of focus, a small anchor that reminds you the world is not entirely against you. Think about the long-term effect of starting your day with this simple question. If for 30 days you begin every morning by noticing something good, you train your mind to recognize goodness faster. You train yourself to assume that there is something worth appreciating, worth noticing, worth holding on to. That creates confidence, that creates emotional resilience. That creates perspective. Gratitude becomes the filter through which you experience the world. When you build a habit of gratitude, you start living with the awareness that life is happening for you, not just to you. You stop waiting for perfect conditions before feeling positive. You stop relying on external achievements to give you internal peace. You realize that gratitude is not the result of a good day. It is the cause of one. And you begin to understand why this question can change everything. Because when you start your day with gratitude, you claim control over the one thing no one else can touch: your perspective. And perspective is power. Purpose is not something you stumble into, it's something you move toward with intention. Every morning, when you ask yourself, what is one thing I can do today that moves me toward my purpose? You're not just planning your day, you're aligning your life. Most people wake up and immediately get pulled into the current of tasks, obligations, and noise. They become busy before they become intentional. They end the day exhausted without feeling fulfilled. And the truth is, being busy is not the same as being productive, and being productive is not the same as being purposeful. Purpose isn't measured by how much you do, but by how deeply what you do connects to who you are becoming. When you ask this question, you force your mind to sift through the clutter and identify something that truly matters. Not everything on your to-do list contributes to your purpose. Some tasks just keep you occupied, some tasks keep you surviving. But there is always one task, one action, that moves you forward in a meaningful way. That one action has disproportionate power. It cuts through the noise, it gives your day direction. It keeps your identity aligned with your ambitions. Most people think they need massive life changes to feel purposeful. They wait for perfect clarity, perfect timing, or perfect confidence before they begin. But purpose is rarely found in dramatic transformations. It's found in small, consistent steps that compound over time. It's in the moments where you choose alignment over convenience, meaning over comfort, and growth over stagnation. Purpose becomes clearer when you move toward it, not when you sit around trying to figure it out. A single aligned action can be something simple: writing one paragraph of the book you've always wanted to create, making one phone call that brings you closer to a dream, learning one new skill that enhances your future, sending one message that nurtures a meaningful relationship, or dedicating just 15 minutes to something that strengthens your long-term vision. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be intentional. What makes this question powerful is that it reduces overwhelm. You don't need to solve your entire life today. You don't need to complete everything. You don't need to run faster than everyone else. You just need one action that aligns with who you want to become. When you focus on the one thing, your mind settles. Your energy becomes targeted. Your progress becomes visible. And visible progress builds confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from achievement, it comes from movement. When you choose this one action in the morning, you take control of your day before the world takes control of you. You shift from being reactive to being proactive. Purpose-driven people lead their days. They don't let their days lead them. This single question shifts your attention from the trivial to the meaningful. It reminds you that your life is too important to be consumed by tasks that don't matter in the long run. Purpose is not a destination you arrive at. It's a direction. And every day you have the chance to point yourself toward it or drift away from it. Most people drift, not because they lack ambition, but because they lack intentionality. They do what's urgent instead of what's important. They do what's expected instead of what's meaningful. They do what's easy instead of what's aligned. But when you ask this question, you interrupt that drift. You turn your day into an opportunity rather than a repetition. There's also power in the word, oh one. You're not asking yourself for 10 things. You're not asking for perfection. You're not asking for your entire purpose to unfold in a single day. You're asking for one step. And one step is always achievable. When you consistently take one aligned step every day, you create momentum, slow at first, steady later, unstoppable eventually. Purpose requires momentum, and momentum begins with one deliberate choice. People drown in tasks because they confuse activity with progress. They assume movement is growth. But there's a difference between moving and moving in the right direction. A person can walk in circles all day and remain exactly where they started. But one step forward in the right direction changes their position, their perspective, and their possibilities. That is what aligned action does. It moves you forward. Even if the step is small, when you focus on the one action that matters, you are training your mind to prioritize what truly matters. You're strengthening your ability to choose wisely. You're shaping your identity as someone who does not waste their days. Purpose becomes woven into your routine, not reserved for distant dreams. And when purpose becomes part of your daily rhythm, life feels meaningful. Not someday, but now. There will be days when you feel unclear, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. On those days, this question becomes even more important. Purpose does not require perfection, it requires consistency. If you can find one purposeful action on your hardest days, imagine what you can do on your best days. The discipline to choose one aligned step builds the character required to live a purposeful life. Your purpose is not hiding from you. It's waiting for you to move toward it. It becomes clearer with every step, stronger with every action, and more alive with every decision you make in its direction. When you ask yourself this question every morning, you create a life that is not random, not chaotic, not accidental, but deliberate, aligned, and meaningful. Because in the end, your purpose is not revealed by what you think about, it's revealed by what you consistently do. There is a different kind of strength that awakens in us when we know someone is counting on us. It's the strength that doesn't come from motivation or mood, but from responsibility, connection, and purpose. When you begin your morning with the question, "Who needs me at my best today?" you tap into a deeper source of energy, one that goes beyond personal ambition and enters the realm of contribution. Human beings rise higher not merely because they want to, but because someone somewhere benefits from them showing up fully. This question reminds you that your life is intertwined with others, and that your actions carry weight far beyond your own world. We often think of leadership as a title or a position, but leadership is really a posture, an internal decision to be someone others can depend on. Leadership is not about demanding more from the people around you. It's about expecting more from yourself, because someone relies on your clarity, your patience, your courage, or your presence. When you identify who needs you at your best, you think about your day differently, you move with more intention, you communicate with more care, you behave with more integrity, you choose your responses instead of reacting impulsively. This single question shifts your mindset from self-centered effort to service-driven purpose, and that shift transforms not only how you act, but how you feel. When someone needs you, your child, your partner, your parents, your team, your friend, your audience, your clients, you suddenly find access to a version of yourself that is more capable than the one driven only by personal gain. Responsibility creates resilience. Knowing that your presence can make someone else's day easier, safer, or more meaningful gives you a reason to rise even when you feel tired. It gives you a reason to regulate your emotions when frustration tries to control you. It gives you a reason to act with discipline when complacency tempts you. We become stronger when the impact of our actions reaches beyond ourselves. Sometimes the person who needs you most isn't someone you speak to daily. It might be a colleague who looks up to you, a stranger who will observe your behavior, or someone silently struggling who feels encouraged simply by your example. There are people who draw courage from your courage and inspiration from your consistency. You may not even know who they are, but every day someone is watching you, not to judge you, but to learn from you, to find hope through you, or to believe something is possible because they see you trying. When you remember that your actions carry more intention. And sometimes the person who needs you at your best is not another person at all. It's the future version of you. The version of you who dreams bigger, who expects more, who is building something meaningful. Your future self needs you to act today with the discipline, clarity, and strength required to give them a world better than the one you're standing in now. When you think of the person you are becoming as someone who relies on your choices today, it pushes you to elevate your behavior. You realize you are responsible not only for the people around you, but also for the person you will become. This question also fosters empathy. When you identify who needs you at your best, you begin to think about what they might be feeling, what challenges they might face, and how your presence could either add to their burden or ease it. You begin to lead with compassion rather than ego. You speak differently. You listen more attentively, you respond rather than react. Leadership becomes less about controlling outcomes and more about supporting people. This shift from self to others creates deeper trust, stronger relationships, and a greater sense of meaning. When we act only for ourselves, our energy fluctuates with our emotions. If we feel good, we do good. If we feel bad, we withdraw. But when we act for someone else, we gain consistency. Purpose stabilizes us. Responsibility grounds us. The awareness that someone needs us helps us rise above excuses and maintain standards even when motivation is low. It reminds us that our best is not just a personal preference. It's a responsibility we carry to the people whose lives we touch. Each day, someone needs your patience more than your anger. Someone needs your clarity more than your confusion. Someone needs your leadership more than your hesitation. Someone needs your encouragement more than your criticism. And someone needs your presence more than your perfection. Being your best doesn't mean being flawless. It means showing up intentionally, with integrity, with awareness, and with a willingness to contribute something meaningful to someone else's day. This question also protects you from selfishness and negative impulses. When temptation arises, when it's the temptation to quit early, to speak harshly, to react impulsively, or to choose comfort over commitment, you remember that your actions are not isolated. Someone benefits from your discipline. Someone suffers from your lack of it. And when you understand that your choices ripple outward, you choose more wisely. You elevate not because you must, but because someone is depending on you to do so. There's also a unique psychological effect in realizing that someone needs you. It activates your sense of purpose. Humans are wired to contribute, to connect, to matter. When you feel needed, you feel meaningful. When you feel meaningful, you feel alive, and being alive in this way makes your efforts feel less like effort and more like purpose. You gain clarity on what really matters and release the distractions that drain your energy. Sometimes the answer to this question is unexpected. It could be someone who hurt you, someone you're responsible for despite conflict, or someone who needs your forgiveness more than your resentment. Being at your best for them doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means showing strength that is not reactive, showing maturity that is not fueled by ego, and showing integrity that isn't conditional. Leadership often requires emotional courage. The courage to be your best even when the situation doesn't bring out the best in others. At the end of the day, This question is a reminder that your life is not lived alone. You are part of a larger human connection where your actions create ripples, your words shape emotions, and your presence affects the atmosphere around you. By stepping into each day with the awareness that someone needs you at your best, you elevate not only your own life, but the lives of those around you. You move through the world with purpose, strength, and intention, qualities that transform ordinary days into meaningful ones and ordinary people into leaders. This question is not only about responsibility, it is about identity. It helps you become the person who doesn't wait for the world to change, but shows up as someone who changes the world for someone else. There is always a gap between who you are today and who you know you could become. That gap is made of choices, tiny, ordinary, everyday choices that either keep you where you are or pull you closer to the future you imagine. When you ask yourself, what would my ideal self do today? You give yourself the gift of clarity. You create a moment where your future steps into your present and guides your behavior. You shift from living by habits to living by intention. And that shift changes everything. Your ideal self is not a fantasy version of you. It's the most aligned version of you, the one who acts with discipline, clarity, courage, and purpose. It's the version of you that already embodies the qualities you admire, but haven't fully mastered yet. And the powerful truth is that this version of you already exists in potential. Every time you act like that version, even in the smallest way, you collapse the distance between the person you are and the person you're becoming. Most people wake up and act according to how they feel. If they feel tired, they choose comfort. If they feel discouraged, they choose avoidance. If they feel overwhelmed, they choose distraction. But your ideal self doesn't make decisions based on temporary emotions. They make decisions based on long-term identity. When you choose the actions your ideal self would choose, you begin to train your brain to prioritize meaning over mood, discipline over impulse, and vision over convenience. It's important to understand that your ideal self is not perfection. It's progress. It's the version of you who tries one more time, who speaks with a little more patience, who shows up with a little more courage, who keeps a promise to yourself even when no one is watching. When you ask what that version would do today, you learn to override your excuses and step into alignment. You create internal leadership, because real leadership begins with leading yourself. Imagine your ideal self waking up in your body with your circumstances, your challenges, your responsibilities. How would they approach the day? Would they speak differently? Would they handle frustration with more calm? Would they make a healthier choice? Would they work a little harder on a dream? Would they say no to something that drains them? The version of you you're striving to become already knows the answers. Asking this question simply unlocks them. This question becomes powerful because it brings your long-term vision into your short-term behavior. Most people have dreams but live in patterns that contradict those dreams. They want to be fit but make choices their future self wouldn't choose. They want wealth but spend impulsively. They want peace but engage in unnecessary conflict. They want impact but procrastinate on their calling. When you consistently ask what your ideal self would do, your daily actions begin to align with the life you say you want. And alignment is what turns dreams into reality. Every time you choose as your ideal self would choose, even for one moment, you strengthen a pathway in your mind. Neuroscience tells us that repeated actions literally rewire your brain. This means that your ideal self is not an abstract idea, it's a neural possibility waiting to be sculpted through your choices. Each aligned decision, no matter how small, strengthens the identity you want to grow into. Each misaligned decision strengthens the identity you want to leave behind. You are always moving either toward or away from your ideal self. The beauty of this question is that it replaces confusion with clarity. You don't need 12 steps. You don't need a complex plan. You just need one decision, one that your ideal self would make. Over time, these decisions accumulate. They build character. They build confidence. They build a version of you who trusts yourself, because trust is built every time you follow through on the actions that reflect your highest standards. There's also something deeply empowering about choosing identity-based action. When you act as your ideal self, you're not pretending, you're practicing. You are rehearsing the behaviors of the person you want to become, and practice always leads to mastery. No one becomes disciplined by accident. No one becomes courageous by accident. No one becomes wise or intentional or fulfilled by accident. You come and you practice being, and your ideal self is the most trustworthy guide you have. They represent your best wisdom, your deepest values, your highest standards, your truest potential. When you let that version lead your decisions, you stop sabotaging yourself with stories like, I'm not ready, I'm too tired, I'll start tomorrow, or this one choice doesn't matter. You start living with integrity instead of convenience. You start creating momentum instead of regret. There will be days when acting like your ideal self feels almost impossible. Days when you're stressed, discouraged, or overwhelmed. But those are the days this question becomes the most transformative. Acting like your ideal self when everything is easy is simple. Acting like your ideal self when everything is difficult is where evolution happens. When you choose alignment under pressure, you break patterns that have held you back for years. You unlock a deeper level of resilience. You prove to yourself that you are capable of growth regardless of circumstances. Sometimes your ideal self would rest instead of overworking. Sometimes they would walk away instead of reacting. Sometimes they would speak up instead of staying silent. Sometimes they would take a leap instead of hesitating. The question isn't always about pushing harder, it's about choosing wisely. It's about choosing in a way that honors your future, not just your present comfort. When you ask this question every morning, you become a deliberate architect of your life. You stop living on autopilot. You stop repeating the same cycles. You stop settling for the habits that keep you small. And slowly, almost quietly, you begin to notice that your actions, your mindset, your emotions, and your outcomes start to shift. You feel more grounded because you know you're acting in alignment with who you want to be. You feel more confident because you see yourself growing into your potential. You feel more fulfilled because you're living intentionally, not reactively. The distance between who you are and who you want to be is not measured in time, it's measured in choices. And every choice that reflects your ideal self shrinks that distance. One day you wake up and realize that the ideal version of you is no longer the future, it's the present. And it all began with a single daily question that reminded you that your future self is not a distant dream, but a daily responsibility. Fear has an interesting way of shaping our lives without ever announcing that it's in charge. It whispers, it nudges, it convinces, and before we realize it, fear becomes the architect of our decisions. When we avoid what scares us, we don't stay safe, we stay small. Avoidance is not protection, it is quiet permission for fear to dictate the direction of our path. And the most dangerous thing about fear is not its intensity, but its subtlety. It doesn't need to roar to control you. All it needs is your silence. And that is why this question matters so deeply. What fears do I need to face instead of avoid? Every single day there is a moment, sometimes small, sometimes overwhelming, where we feel a pull towards something uncomfortable. A conversation we don't want to have, a dream we hesitate to pursue, a change we've postponed for months or even years. Fear grows when we walk away from these moments. It expands like a shadow stretching across the floor, not because it's powerful, but because we refuse to turn on the light. The instant you look directly at a fear, something shifts inside you. It doesn't vanish, it doesn't disappear in a blaze of courage, but it loses authority. Awareness has that effect. Once you bring something into the light, it no longer has the same grip over you. We often believe the goal is to eliminate fear, to somehow become people who no longer shake, no longer worry, no longer hesitate. But fear is not the enemy. Fear is a signal. Fear is a compass pointing toward the edges of your potential. Anything that has the power to grow you will first intimidate you. Anything that can expand your life will first challenge your comfort. So the question is not, how do I get rid of fear? It is, how do I move with it? How do I step forward even when my voice trembles, even when my hands shake, even when the outcome feels uncertain? Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that something else matters more. And every morning, when you ask yourself which fears you need to face, you are not demanding bravery. You are giving yourself permission to evolve. You're reminding yourself that fear does not need to be a wall, it can be a doorway. One step through that doorway may feel heavy, but it will change the entire landscape of what you believe you're capable of. Think about how many opportunities have quietly passed you by simply because fear asked you to wait. How many ideas have stayed in your mind because fear told you they weren't ready? How many times you said, not now, not because the timing was wrong, but because fear made the moment feel too big. And yet, if you look back, you'll see that nothing was ever as terrifying as the story fear told you. The conversation you avoided wasn't as catastrophic as your mind imagined. The decision you postponed wasn't as complex as fear made it seem. The challenge you delayed wasn't as impossible as fear whispered. When you face fear, you reclaim energy, you reclaim clarity, you reclaim self-respect. Every avoided fear comes with a cost, and that cost is self-trust. When you continuously walk away from things that matter, your mind begins to doubt your strength. But the moment you face even the smallest fear, a new message is written into your identity: I can do hard things. Fear shrinks not when life becomes easier, but when you become stronger. And here's the powerful part: facing fear is rarely about dramatic leaps. It's about small intentional steps. It might mean having one honest conversation you've avoided. It might mean finally beginning the project you've only imagined. It might mean showing up somewhere you feel out of place. It might mean acknowledging a truth you've been trying to outrun. Each of these steps is a declaration that fear does not get to decide the boundaries of your life. When you choose to face fear, you breathe momentum into your future. You make room for growth that avoidance would have suffocated. You demonstrate to yourself that discomfort is not a prison. It's a passage. And the remarkable thing is, once you walk through one fear, others begin to feel less intimidating. You build a rhythm of courage, a muscle memory of stepping toward what scares you instead of away from it. This question, what fears do I need to face instead of avoid, is a morning reset. It interrupts the automatic patterns that fear relies on. Fear thrives when you're on autopilot, repeating the same decisions, avoiding the same challenges, replaying the same excuses. But ask yourself this question and suddenly you're awake, you're alert, you're aware that you have a choice. And when you choose to face fear, even in the smallest way, you move closer to the person you were meant to become. Fear may never disappear, but your relationship with it can transform. You can learn to hear it without obeying it. You can learn to feel it without surrendering to it. You can learn to recognize it not as a stop sign, but as a signal that something meaningful lies on the other side. Growth is always just past the boundary of comfort. Transformation always begins in the territory of fear. And that's where your life expands, not when fear goes away, but when you take it with you and walk forward anyway. Letting go is one of the most underestimated forms of strength. We often believe that holding on, clinging tightly to what we know, what we fear, what we regret, is a sign of perseverance. But there is a vast difference